Hello everyone and welcome to Blogger and Everything, and welcome back to the channel for those tuning in on YouTube, and also welcome back to the podcast. Well, there's been quite a bit of things going down since the last upload. There was the match review for that shocking loss to Villarreal. Literally minutes after I think I had uploaded that, we heard the news that Xavi Hernandez has decided to step down as FC Barcelona manager at the end of the season. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that. That's what this is going to be about. This wasn't scheduled, but I'll try and give some of my thoughts on everything, looking at what exactly Xavi had said in his post-match interview where he explained his thoughts. I will look at why exactly he stepped down, and is there any blame to be apportioned here? Where should it go? Aside from that, we'll look at the million-dollar question of who is going to replace Xavi Hernandez. So we're going to go all the way looking at all of that. So if this is your first time tuning in here, then welcome, by the way. And before I go any further, I think it would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the fact that on the same day that Xavi Hernandez announced his departure, we hit 7K here as well on the channel. So that was pretty dope. It was pretty great feeling as kind of a band-aid, considering what kind of a performance we saw from the team and the bombshell news that Xavi dropped on us. Although I should admit that I personally wasn't too surprised. If you don't believe me, go ahead and watch that match review and you see that I did say in there that I felt Xavi might at some point end up doing a Jurgen Klopp, like we saw Klopp, announcing his retirement. Announcing his resignation from Liverpool. Anywho, so what exactly did Xavi say from his perspective? Well, the statement that Xavi gave post-match, I would say it did sort of lean very heavily into the narrative that there's been a lot of negativity, and that some of this negativity, he said, gets to the players, in the past. And I think more clearly now in this post-match interview, I think he gave a lot of indications to say that this negativity was actually getting to him personally as well. Now, obviously, maybe hearing this and you'll be saying, "Oh, Xavi, buddy, you're a top manager, you paid a lot of money, you should be able to deal with that." And no doubt there is some truth to that. But you could also look to, we could give examples of managers like Simeone and Klopp, who even in the times when they've been having poor results, times that they've been underachieving, we've not seen the kind of, for lack of a better term, malice directed towards them that we've seen, directed towards Xavi and this team, especially in the past 4 or so months. Not just from rival fans, but, like from fans of FC Barcelona, and also from the local media in Barcelona. And it's really, there have been so many times this season where we've witnessed Kool-Aids kick the team and Xavi when they're down. And sure, as a supporter, you do have the right to show and voice your displeasure, but as you do so, we also have to remember that these are people that you're tearing apart, okay? And that these are still the same people that you'll need to perform on the pitch come the next match day. And looking at what Xavi was saying, it's really just coming across like he's really just been worn down because of all those waves on the negativity and the criticism that he's been getting, not just this season, he was getting it last season as well, but it's been even more, I think, ramped up this season. To go further into proving this point, Xavi then quoted how he had in the past been asked if he could be Barcelona's Sir Alex Ferguson, and his response, which now he gave here, was that it's not possible for FC Barcelona to have a Sir Alex Ferguson because of these same issues that he pointed out here. And I guess he's trying to say that understanding that is really the difference between Barca having a long-term manager or not having one after all. And being this way, I guess having this environment saw us lose a man who is arguably modern football's greatest ever manager, Pep Guardiola. And right now, look at him over at City. He's happier than he ever was at his boyhood club, Barcelona. And that's mostly because of that. Sure, that's the thing. Like, we could acknowledge that. I think there is a lot of negativity and toxicity that generally comes with the Barcelona job, which has, for unacceptable reasons, I think, been allowed to be the norm. But having said all that, does that really count as like a major reason on why Xavi Hernandez has not been able to be as successful as he probably would have wanted to, and as he probably could have been at FC Barcelona. At the end of the day, is all of this negativity a reason enough for, Xavi not being able to take this Barca project where so many thought it could have gone? Well, I would in that case have to say no. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm firmly of the opinion that constant grilling from fans and local media is a huge part of why managers never last long at Barca. I mean, it gets draining, even for the elites. We've already mentioned Pep Guardiola. We could also talk about Luis Enrique, another one who lasted just 3 seasons, much like Xavi will. But all that aside, there are reasons for which you can point the finger at both Xavi as well as other, let's say, extenuating factors, like squad dynamics and player performances. For instance, this season, for example, Xavi lost his most important player from last season, in my opinion, which was Sergio Busquets, and he got Oriol Romeu as his replacement. To add to that, his second most important player from last season, who in my opinion was Pedri, has so far this season been riddled with a lot of injuries. And to add to that as well, his third most important player from last season, Xavi, is out for the rest of the season. And it doesn't end there, because we could talk about a player who was probably his fourth most important player last season in Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who is also out injured and won't be back until something like March. Then we can even go further down the pecking order. His fifth most important player, Ousmane Dembele, left for PSG, and sixth most important player probably from last season, who was, Robert Lewandowski, also his best striker, saw his form fall off of a cliff. That's a lot of variables to have to deal with. And that's why I think his team has struggled this season. That, of course, coupled with some instances where he himself hasn't had the best moments of judgment or in-game management. But those things ended up being exacerbated by the fact that, he had all those things going on with his squad. And just generally, all of his players this season have dropped their form from last season. None of them is playing at the same level that they were last season. But having said that, other teams around Europe and in La Liga have also had to contend with some things like injury issues. There've been a lot of injury crises around Europe this season. Real Madrid, for example, and Girona too, are both dealing with quite a few injury issues, injuries to key players. But they've still found ways to adapt to playing without those crucial players. Barcelona, on the other hand, have failed to find answers. And at the end of the day, the blame for that rightfully falls on Xavi, because it's his job to find the answers. Now that we've talked at length about exactly what went wrong or where we can point fingers, let's get briefly into the conversation of, who's going to replace Xavi. The million-dollar question comes. Who will replace Xavi Hernandez? Now, we've heard a lot of names come up already, no fewer than 10 in fact. Julian Nagelsmann, Hansi Flick, Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel, Emmanuel Alguacil, Roberto De Zerbi, Thiago Motta, Luis Enrique, Mikel Arteta, Rafa Marquez, and even Pep Guardiola. For me, the answer of who should succeed Xavi comes down to a couple of things. One, does Joan Laporta want a quick fix solution to save face for the elections that are coming up in 2025? 2, is Laporta actually ready to have a long-term project and to trust in La Masia over big-name signings? And 3, of course, how realistic is the target? How realistic is it to get this manager into Barcelona? These 3 questions, for me, adequately categorize and filter out those 11 names I've given you to leave us with about, 5 names or so, 3 of whom I feel are quick fixes, and 2 others who are project-style managers. I'll start with the latter because Xavi himself was, here at Barca as a project-style manager. Xavi was, in fact, a good opportunity for Barca to build a young team that wouldn't have won trophies immediately, but would have become something special as both the young players and the coach would have grown into their potential. But Laporta ruined that with the levers and signing the Lewandowskis, the Rafinhas, and the Koundés, because what that effectively meant is that Barca needed to win now. And Xavi needed to adjust his mindset from building a project to, winning now, to be one of those quick fix kind of guys. So if Laporta this time around is serious about being patient and building a proper project, then I think Emmanuel Alguacil is probably the best candidate that will come with the least cost, because over the past 4 years, he has built something impressive on a budget. Provided the fan base can also, grow up and accept that in football you can't win every year, then Alguacil can have a good chance of building a formidable team. In fact, I have zero doubts that Alguacil could succeed at Barcelona. The thing is just that he would need time. He can build a competitive team from scratch. We've seen that at Sociedad. And like Xavi has been doing, he can also bring through a lot of youngsters to strengthen the team. Plus, he'll come with experience in winning trophies. And, this year that he's been managing Sociedad in the Champions League, where, need I remind you, they topped their group. Also, Emmanuel Alguacil could maybe help convince Zubimendi to come to Barca. Needless to say, that's who I think Barcelona should get, considering their budgetary limitations and the fact that they won't be able to give him money to make big name signings. But should those budgetary limitations be not so big of a deal in Laporta's head, then the other project style manager they should try and go for is a man who is really the ultimate project style manager at the moment, and that's of course Jurgen Klopp. Klopp would bring a vast amount of experience and respect, not just to the dressing room, but also to those pressers, even though he might be as susceptible as Xavi to reporters in Spain getting under his skin. Klopp, however, has said he wants some time off managing, so unless Laporta convinces him to forego the sabbatical that he says he needs, or by some miracle he convinces someone like Hansi Flick to come in as a caretaker guy for like a season or so, while Klopp gets himself some rest, then I don't really see this one panning out this summer. And if that is the case, that it doesn't pan out this summer, then I think he'll probably just wind up at Bayern Munich anyway. However, if Laporta goes for the quick fix kind of solutions, then he can save his position as president by probably hiring one of the following 3 managers, all of whom happen to be German: Hansi Flick, Thomas Tuchel, and Julian Nagelsmann. You could even argue that these 3 are probably the best candidates to look at aside from Jurgen Klopp on this list that I've given. Probably like it's Klopp, then it's these 3. Flick is probably the top option between these 3 here, as there's less risk with him because he has proved that he can take over an underperforming team at a top club and get them firing on all cylinders. His football would also be the most taxing though, and well, you know how trash our medical team is, so he'd come with a big overhaul to the club staff that would probably be very costly because he'd need to hire reliable people to run that medical department. Julian Nagelsmann similarly has a good track record of getting the most out of his squads as well as being tactically versatile, but that Bayern Munich sucking right now is still going to hurt him because I don't think it will inspire the kind of confidence Barca's board would want to see. As for Tuchel, in terms of versatility and working with what he has, he's probably behind only Jurgen Klopp in that regard. I rate him definitely more than Flick in that category, but he's currently struggling to live with Leverkusen and last season barely edged out Borussia Dortmund. Plus, we'd actually be doing Bayern a favor if we took him out of that club right now, so let's just leave him there. The fairy tale story would then of course be Pep Guardiola returning, but that's a pipe dream. And while I'm clearing up those pipe dreams, we can then also talk briefly about Arteta, who I feel like he would be a step down from Xavi because tactically he is less versatile and he would buckle even faster under the pressure from the fans at Barca and the media outlets in Catalonia. So, in that regard, the best choice for longevity and transformation of the club style and culture is most likely Jurgen Klopp. should signing Klopp prove to be an impossible task, or at least one that can be achieved, well, then in that case, I think Barca can probably look to Hansi Flick or Julian Nagelsmann, and I'm just saying this because it seems like right now Laporta is pretty set on getting a German coach. Otherwise, give my man Emmanuel Augustil a chance and be patient with him, okay? Laporta, be patient with him. All right, that's just about that, guys. That's the whole breakdown. What made Xavi break down, why he's leaving, and what we can expect, or at least who we should expect to be replacing him. So, you could expect that things are going to go exactly the way I've predicted, okay? Because I'm that good with predictions. Never been wrong in my life. All right? So, I thank you for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're watching this from YouTube. If you are listening to this from the podcast, please rate that podcast and give me 5 stars, okay? Just do it. You can do it. I thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, and Forza Barca.